documents that would put lives at risk?
Yo, welcome back to the channel. Let's jump on in.
Our natural predator has been absent for a few 100,000 years. A branch off upper primate, 10 times more intelligent than a human. It's so intelligent. The way that you're conscious or I'm conscious now, it can hold 2 or 3 or 4 versions of consciousnesses like that in its head at any given moment. So it can look at topics from multiple real points of view. And what it does is it basically goes into hibernation like a vampire. It lets the human population build up. And then when it comes out of hibernation, over a few generations, its existence may have been turned into myth. Then hunts the population down again, right? Because its brain structure is so different, and because it's such an excellent predator, as you would need to be if you're chewing on something, right? Its visual cortex is different to a human, and it calculates like horizontal and vertical simultaneously to look. It's like a pattern recognition system for hunting. And up until only a few thousand years ago, there were no right angles in nature. But humans started building Euclidean geometry buildings, and that caused an overlap in its visual cortex like a right angle, and it sent the vampires into grand mal.
So I think he's saying there that the natural predator was something like a vampire, and that this was part of nature's way of culling the population and, you know, solving for any issues due to human overpopulation. I don't know. That's a tough one for me to wrap my head around. I don't think that that's the case. I think there's a lot more interesting legends that you could sort of play with ideas about being actually real. For instance, dragons. The fact that dragons show up in a lot of different cultures who never had contact, ancient cultures who never had contact with one another, is interesting. That being said, I think there's a fairly simple explanation for that, is they all saw bones in the ground that looked like dragons, which were dinosaurs, you know, so, but that's a lot more compelling to me than vampires were used to cull the population. That's a little bit wild. It makes me want to go watch the podcast in length and see what his argument really is. I'm just looking at the comments here. Someone said, make podcasting equipment more expensive. That's pretty good. Yeah, this one's a little goofy to me. I don't. This is the first time hearing about this, and I don't think there's even a smidgen of evidence here that is in any way compelling whatsoever. Humans did have natural predators for most of their existence. And many of those predators, you could maybe call them competitors, were fellow humans who didn't make it. You know, you're talking about Neanderthals, you can talk about Denisovans, you can talk about a lot of the other species of I guess you can say human, but that are non-Homo sapien branches of our, I think they call it a genus, and you know, we competed with them for thousands of years. I think that's why there's something in humans that results in the, God, and I'm forgetting the term for it, but there's a term for when you see something like a face that's not quite right. It looks scary to you, and it's like a part of like this concept gets used in horror a lot. God, I wish I could remember the name, but I'm blanking on it right now. Anyways, I've always felt strongly that that was a genetic remnant of competition with other Homo species, genus, whatever they're called. I don't know the terminology here. You know, allowed us to distinguish against our own kind versus others that look very similar to us for survival purposes, right? In-group preferences. race aside, right? There certainly was an in-group preference for someone of your own species. But yeah, for vampires, no way. That's crazy.
So Iran is now openly claiming that members of the Epstein class are going to attack America. I'm just going to read this to you. This is an actual verifiable tweet from a man named Ali Larijani. And Ali is the secretary of the Supreme National Security Council of Iran. So he is one of the most powerful individuals in all of Iran. And he's extremely plugged into intelligence. So obviously he knows a thing or two about a thing or two. Now, keep in mind that this could be a lie. This could be propaganda. However, I am going to read this to you. And to the TikTok censors, this is verifiable information and a developing news story. So Ali tweeted, "I've heard that the remaining members of Epstein's network have devised a conspiracy to create an incident similar to," I'm just going to let you read that number because I don't want to get censored, "and blame Iran for it. Iran fundamentally opposes such terrorist schemes and has no war with the American people." So this is coming from this guy, one of the most powerful individuals in all of Iran. And as we know, Iran has been talking a lot about the Epstein files. And, Iran is actually mentioned in the Epstein files a number of times.
This stuff is so difficult to talk about without being overly political, but I'm going to try and do it. I do think that there's possibility behind something like this. Any network that can produce an Epstein type character is likely still functioning without Epstein, right? Like, I think a lot of people like to think of this like, it seems like nowadays people have this sort of hero complex where everything is wrapped up in one individual, and it's just not the way reality works. I mean, think about a company, right? Just because a CEO gets fired or goes down in disgrace doesn't mean the company is completely destroyed. If Elon Musk died in a car accident next week, it'd be a significant blow to all of his companies, but they continue to function. You could argue that they may continue to function less successfully, but it certainly continue to function. So the idea that because Epstein is gone, whoever he was attached to is no longer operating doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Would that network be cohesive enough to do something like this, and do they have the motivation to do something like this? Well, that's a much more loaded question that I don't think I'm going to get too into detail, but I do think that network is still likely around, functioning and operating to a certain extent. What their purpose is, what their motivations are, right? Those are the questions that are much more difficult to answer. And whether or not they have the ability to pull off an event like the event that he referenced, an attack like that is also a very difficult question to answer. Again, it depends on really what you believe, who you believe, what groups you believe are really behind that Epstein network. Again, calling it the Epstein network for lack of a better term, but that's a much more difficult question to answer. I think that the world, this conflict is playing out on the world stage in a way that maybe no other conflict is right now or has been in quite a while. So for something as blatant as this to happen, to force the US to continue to pursue Iran antagonistically, I think that's unlikely. So I don't know that I put a lot of stock into this one, but I do believe that whatever was behind Epstein, whether it's a cohesive network or something looser, I do think those folks are still out there and functioning and operating.
Tell me some crazy conspiracy theories. You repeat your current life forever, and that's why deja vu exists. What if this reel is posted by the government so they can learn how much we know about them in the real world? People who died during COVID may have felt they were watching the end of mankind from their hospital beds. That's why. We are third-dimensional beings, and our shadows are two-dimensional. That means we are a shadow of a fourth-dimensional being. What if when we die, we just go into another newborn body, and the reason a newborn might cry is because they lost everything and everyone? We wake up from dreams because we may die. What if we die in real life? Will we go to the dream world? We normalize being watched by cameras literally everywhere. Honestly crazy. Your immune system doesn't know that your eyes exist. If it finds out, it will attack the eyes.
A lot of those weren't conspiracy theories. They're just really interesting ideas. I liked the one that, God, what did it talk about? Our shadow is a two-dimensional, and it's cast by a three-dimensional being. We are three-dimensional beings. That could make us the shadows of a fourth-dimensional being. That's really interesting. There may very likely exist science that explains that away very easily. I'm not entirely sure all of the characteristics of a shadow, but it's an interesting concept, right? And I'm just looking at the comments right now. Someone's saying shadows are not two-dimensional. So yeah, but I once saw, not once, but I've seen, this explanation of what a three-dimensional object passing through a two-dimensional plane would look like. So for instance, if a sphere were to pass through a two-dimensional plane, what would that look like to another two-dimensional object or being, two-dimensional being? So if you have a stick figure drawn on a piece of paper, and then you were to pass a sphere through that piece of paper, what would it look like to that little stick figure person? It essentially looked like a dot that grew into a circle that got increasingly large. A dot that grows into a circle that gets increasingly large and then comes back down to a dot and then disappears. That's what it would look like. And that makes a lot of sense. So while there may be some science that explains the whole shadow thing, I think, again, if artistic license here, you interpret this a little bit, the idea is still valid, I think. It's interesting. Are we the projections of something beyond our current dimension? Very, very interesting idea to think about.
LifeLog is a Pentagon program that wants to basically collect all your data for your whole life. What day did the government stop the LifeLog project?
DARPA shut down the LifeLog project February 4th, 2004.
Now do me a favor and look up what day was Facebook registered as a business.
February 4th, 2004.
The exact same day.
Yeah, God, I wish I could remember this guy's name. Not Danny Jones, Sam Tripoli. Sam Tripoli's awesome. He's not the most sophisticated guy, I'll say, who looks into these ideas. I don't think he'd find that insulting if he heard me say that, but not that I know him or anything. But he's a stand-up comic who dives into this stuff. He has a podcast. I forget what it's called. It might be Tinfoil Hat or something like that. Super entertaining because he just gets so excited and he dives into a lot of different stuff and he'll go into the crazier stuff. This, though, is definitely a fact. Doesn't mean that they're connected in any way, but it is bizarre that DARPA was funding a project called LifeLog, which essentially was not just Facebook, but the whole concept of social media in general. LifeLog seems to be like a proto version of modern social media. So, and I believe it's also well known that DARPA was involved in Google, if I'm recalling correctly. They might have funded Google to a certain extent or something like that. And they might have funded Facebook as well. or some element of the government did, some branch of the government did. So the fact that some of these major tech companies are connected to the intelligence community, I believe is pretty well established at this point. If you're not aware of that, you should be. And if I'm wrong, please fact check me in the comments down below.
This photo has been circling around the internet today pretty much nonstop. I'm seeing it constantly.
LifeLog is a Pentagon program.
This photo has been circling around the internet today pretty much nonstop. I'm seeing it constantly. I've been tagged in it a million times. For those of you that are watching the podcast, this is a photo of Donald Trump with what appears to be what people are calling Nordic aliens, or the Volturi from Degum Twilight. Like, I mean, these people are extremely tall. I mean, Donald Trump is a very tall person, and these people are quite a bit taller than him. They're very pale skin, and they've got this platinum blonde hair, and they're in these like fancy matching red suits. Everybody keeps asking, is this image real? Is this image real? And I don't think that's the point of this. It doesn't matter if the image is real or not. Google says the images are AI generated, even though people and experts are saying that they're using AI detection tools and they are not detecting any AI detection. But the point of it doesn't really matter. I don't think it matters if this is a real photo or not, because it alludes to something much darker. So AI might have been created for the very purpose that we're about to see here. And it's what's called Project Bluebeam. If you haven't heard of Project Bluebeam, it's the theory that the government will one day try to take away a lot of our freedoms and try to force like a one world government, because we need to come together to fight some kind of UFO extraterrestrial force. With today's technology of AI and these drone light shows and these holograms and all this crazy stuff, they could easily fake like some kind of UFO invasion, an alien invasion. And that might be why we're seeing all of these like disclosure things here lately. I mean, heck, they just made a movie called Disclosure Day, which I've heard is awful. But we're seeing all these like unclassified UFO things and alien reports from the military and the Pentagon. And on the news, they were even saying that apparently one of the files was talking about how there's been 4 different bodies recovered from UFO crashes, and one of them is the Nordic aliens. And the Nordic aliens, if you guys don't know what that is in like UFO folklore, is the Nordic aliens are a very intelligent race of humans that look exactly like us. And at one point in time, they might have actually implanted us here on Earth, and that's where humans come from in general. Super weird time if you guys want to go down that rabbit hole. Like the Bible says the first man's name was Adam. The people who said the Anunnaki came and visited us first, they said the first one that came here was Adamu, which is literally spelled the same as Adam in the Bible, just with a U at the end, Adamu. So literally almost the exact same story coming from the Bible and coming from the Anunnaki. That's a whole different rabbit hole. We'll do it another day if you guys want to hear it. But people are saying, is this really Donald Trump with these Nordic aliens? And here's the thing, with AI being what it is, we couldn't, like, if they could release us real photos of aliens right now, and they could say, hey, these are all real, and there's still going to be people who believe it, and there's going to be people who don't believe it and say that it's AI. And I think that's why AI is becoming so popular right now, is because I think they are realizing that, hey, they can't hide these things for much longer. You know, you hear about all the missing NASA scientists, the Monica Reza, one of the missing NASA scientists, that said by 2027, the U.S. government and the world's government would no longer be able to hide the truth of aliens from us. So I think that's why AI is becoming so popular and so advanced so quickly, is because even if you saw a real photo of an alien and put it online, no one's going to believe you. Everybody's going to just say it's AI. And that is the truth for everything in the future now. If they ever find Bigfoot, it's AI. If they ever find aliens, it's AI. There's a meteor coming towards Earth. Unless you can see it with your own eyes, everybody's going to say it's AI. And that's just the truth of our world right now. That is it.
Few things to say there about that one. I think it's, number one, it does matter whether or not that picture is fake or real, and it's definitely fake. It's 100% fake. It's very clear it's fake. With some of the stuff, AI aside, well, not aside, but, we'll talk more deeply about it in a second. It's very obvious still. Like, sure, it's impressive, but it's clearly fake. And also, you just have to use basic common logic. Like, you think the president would be meeting with an alien race on the fucking White House lawn? Like, Come on, guys. Use your brains. Use your brains just a little bit. Even if they're aliens, the Nordics are real, and they have a relationship where ambassadors are being sent to Earth, they're not meeting out under the sun where anyone can see, and American journalists like taking pictures through the trees. Come on, guys. Wake up. Use your brains a little bit. So it's clearly, there's no doubt. It's not even a 1% chance possibility that it's real. It's 100% fake. Who cares? I mean, he did what we watched some clips yesterday. One of them included a quote-unquote journalist from CNN. And I just did what I'm talking about, called framing. But this journalist cited experts, and he did the same thing in this clip. And we called out the journalist for it. We have to call him out for it too. He said supposed AI experts or something like that are running it. What the hell is an AI expert? You mean to tell me AI, like an AI engineer, looked at this photo and said, "Oh, I can't confirm that it's not AI generated"? What? What AI engineers, legitimate AI engineers, are doing that kind of thing? I mean, I suppose it's possible, but it seems unrealistic to me. And whoever, if they're out there, they're probably schizophrenic or suffering from some other type of mental health disorder. So their assessment is not really carrying any credence. So right off the bat, this is 100% fake. Regardless of all this AI stuff on the internet, guys, just use your brain. There's all kinds of slop on the internet right now, of an alien spaceship in the skies and weird, light effects in the skies and all this stuff. Like, listen, if it's not coming out of every single news outlet on the planet, like, if aliens are real, right? Now we're going to get to that part in a second as well. And something like this happened and it's real. It's on every news outlet for the next forever, right? Like, that's just what's going to dominate. Forget about the Iran war. Forget about Ukraine. Forget about the UFC event at the White House. Forget about this, that, and the other. That's all that people are going to be talking about for, like, ever, right? Like, that's the whole new topic. That's it, right? So because you saw a TikTok, it looks real to me. Like, use your brain, man. Just use your brain. That's all it takes, is a little bit of critical thought. Is this real? No, it's not real, because everyone on the planet would be talking about it. The fact that they're not means it's most likely fake, right? The videos that are real, that do come out, get a lot of attention and end up getting discussed in a lot more credible ways. For instance, the Tic Tac UFO videos, those types of things that were taken by military jets with $1 million cameras that can take high speed video footage and in different wavelengths and all. I mean, like, that's what we're talking about here, not some dummy that works for CNN hiding in a tree with an iPhone. Okay, like, that's the stuff that should be taken credibly, not this goofy stuff. And to turn to AI for a second. Again, very, very easy still to distinguish between AI videos, photos, and real videos and photos. I will say it's impressive what AI can do, but I've never seen a single thing that has ever tricked me. And if you have, you need to start thinking more critically about that stuff. There are things, and I will admit, some of these photos look very real. More so than like your typical AI swap video. It only takes 5 seconds of critical reasoning to go, oh yeah, it's probably fake. So beyond the quality of the AI, just again, use logic to try and understand whether or not the stuff is real or not. All of that being said, it is crazy that this FBI report or whatever that came out recently is supposedly confirming all of this stuff. Supposedly, according to this FBI report, reptilians are real, Nordics are real, the Greys are real, and there was a fourth one, and I can't remember what it is. Absolutely insane. I don't believe it in the And it's making me question a lot more of the stuff that's come out. Certain witnesses and stuff like that, like David Grush, I now question a lot of his testimony. The rate of disclosure is wild. And the fact that it's just coming out reports, texts, that kind of stuff. No images, no footage, no nothing that I can see and verify with my own eyes. No press conferences showing, hey, here's the body of the alien that we found at Roswell. None of that stuff. So I don't really buy it. But it's crazy that, the FBI is coming out and saying this stuff. And that, more than anything, if you want to convince someone that aliens is real, that's far more compelling to someone with a working brain than these goofy AI pictures. So focus on that stuff if you want to talk about it. At least it has some legitimacy to it.
Problem is, and this I want to be clear about, there are two governments. There's the government you know about, we elect and appoint. There's a shadow or secret government that is actually running this. And that is not a conspiracy theory. It's a fact. We can prove it. And what that means is...
So, first of all, this guy, I think his name is David Greer, is an absolute shyster, grifter, in my opinion. And might be paid by some folks on the inside. Supposedly he might be connected to elements of the intelligence community. I've heard those claims, but he's been around forever. I've been interested in like conspiracy stuff from an entertainment perspective and researched it slowly for probably over a decade now. And he's been around since before I got into this stuff. So anything this guy says, I can't take seriously at all. Anything he says. Which I do think that there may be an element of, number one, all this text was covering his face, so who knows if he even said that. This could have been a voice change. This is a terrible TikTok. But just to talk about this guy, is the only reason I played it. Because I just wonder if at this point they know his reputation has been completely damaged and that he's like, it's like reverse psychology now, that they put him out there to try and like discredit any of the ideas that he's talking about. Because I do think that the idea that is presented here, that there may be some sort of shadow government at play, is certainly a possibility. So in order to discredit that idea, they have, David Greer go out there, or Stephen Greer, I can't remember his name, come out there and say it's the case, and then everyone go, oh, well, if this grifter said it's that, then it's probably false. Right? Some sort of reverse psychology thing. Anyways, him aside, you definitely can't say it's fact. What you can say is that the deep state exists, right? So understand, first of all, what that means. There is a definition of deep state. The guy who wrote a book defined it clearly, and it's essentially the government apparatus that is consistent across elections and is unelected, right? So it's essentially the unelected bureaucracy. That is what the deep state is. That no one is arguing that exists, right? Like across administrations, across elections, you don't vote for the head of the Federal Reserve. That's a bad example because they're technically private, but you don't vote for the head of the EPA. Well, that's appointed by the president, sure, but there's a whole bunch of people who run the EPA and make it work every single day that are not appointed by the president. Oh, well, that person can reappoint, the head who is appointed by the president can come in and reappoint the all the leaders. They can, but there's definitely people of power and influence within a lot of those agencies who are much more difficult to reappoint because they are like some of the fundamental mechanisms that make the organization run, and you can't just replace them, right? So that's kind of what the deep state is. That certainly exists for a fact. How much power they wield? Are they operating some sort of shadow government? It's a different conversation. I don't know. I certainly think that there can be elements within certain bodies the military-industrial complex, the Pentagon, the private companies that make up the military-industrial complex. There's likely loosely affiliated networks of people who are working towards their own aims. I think the same thing can be said about the intelligence community, about the healthcare industry, about Wall Street, right? So are they forming a shadow government? I don't know. I think it's a little bit more complex than that. I think everyone wants this simplistic answer. Okay, here it is. Here's the answer. Read this news article, read this book, watch this documentary, and you have it all figured out. You'll know all the answers. You know how the world works. And it's not that simple, guys. It's not that simple, folks. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of homework. It's all very boring, and it's extremely complex and dynamic and constantly shifting day to day. So to think that you're going to be on top of this and know everything and have all the answers and be able to prove it is probably never going to happen. That being said, hopefully we can get closer and closer to an idea of what's really going on and how things really work. But my working theory has been for a while now, that it's more like Game of Thrones, right? There's houses, each house Stark versus House Lannister. House Lannister is the military-industrial complex. House Stark is Wall Street. House, Tyrell is the healthcare industrial complex, right? There's groups of networks of powerful people organized around shared interests that are working towards their own aims and manipulating the government to accomplish those goals. That's how I think it works. And some of those groups operate more openly. Some of them operate openly and covertly, and some of them operate entirely covertly. And so I think that's how it works. Again, I can't prove any of that. That's just a working theory, and I could be totally wrong. But to me, I think if you believe that we know exactly how everything works, the government works exactly the way it's been told to work, it's that old Schoolhouse Rocks video. If you're from my generation, you remember, I'm just a bill. If you think that's how the government works, man, I don't know what world you're living in or what you're watching, but it doesn't seem to be that simple. There's a little bit more to it. So I don't know that anything was really demonstrated there, or even what the point was that he was trying to make. But God, it was fun. It was so entertaining, and I love this kind of stuff. Seeing, trying to draw all these connections. This is what I think really pulled me into the conspiracy stuff, is watching these kinds of things, and then you slowly, branch out and learn about other stuff. But this stuff is certainly so interesting to me and engaging. I don't know if it's compelling in any way, but super engaging. And the only thing I will say in there that I think is at all legitimate or compelling in any way is the stuff about the UN. He showed, some stuff about the UN and population control there. And the UN has definitely come out with some really interesting articles, Agenda 2030, all this stuff, right? And that was kind of, I guess, a quote-unquote right-wing talking point, which is kind of weird. that it's considered right wing, and now there's like a left wing talking point against that. And about like Agenda 2026 or something like that. I don't know. I don't pay attention to that stuff very much. The Agenda 2026 stuff, I don't pay attention, because if you're so wrapped up in one political party, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But the UN coming out and saying that it's doing things is not really... I don't know much about the UN, but I don't know that you can say it's left-wing or right-wing. Anyways, I don't want to go too far into the politics of that, but I do think it's interesting, and when they're writing articles telling you that you'll own nothing and be happy, well, you should pay attention to that. You know, the be happy part, put that to a side, but they're telling you you'll own nothing. Interesting article, and one that I think is worth paying attention to when they tell you specifically a global organization that organizes the entire, all governments on the world, or most of them anyways, is telling you that they're working towards a future where you will not possess ownership of anything, is something you should probably pay attention to. Other than that, this was super interesting. The TikTok is called Reality Revolt Project. It looks like Dimitri, that might be the song. The TikTok is called Reality Revolt Project. It might be his name, Dimitri Revolt. And DimitriLegrand.com for his documentary called See in the Dark, which I think I'm definitely going to watch maybe later today or this weekend. Again, I don't know. Who knows? You have to watch the documentary to see if there's anything really legitimate in there, but it's so much fun, especially when you got that cool do music going on. This is the fun part of conspiracy stuff.
One of the things that has been creeping in about Roswell or various other kind of crashes, right? That sometimes they find human body parts in these crashes. But you've heard of these cattle mutilations sort of things?
Yes.
There's also a corpus of information about human mutilations with similar eyes burned out, colon extracted, all that kind of stuff. You never hear these people talk about because they're pretty dark. There is an aspect to that, to all this, and how do you explain that, right? The whole picture is going to be unsettling. Something that I think would be far darker, which is, yes, you're a created species, you're a farm, and life ends at death. Like you don't pass on. It's just nothing. That I think would have the highest level of ontological shock.
A couple of things to say about this one. First off, I'll just say that Julian Dory is the name of the podcaster. He's got a phenomenal podcast. Guy is very, very well educated. Specifically, there's a podcast, and I wish I could remember the woman's name, but I can't. I believe she's Russian. And they have a debate over sort of World War II and the framing of Churchill and Stalin. And I'm not going to go into the politics of any of that stuff. I'm far from educated enough. But I just remember listening to the podcast and how incredibly well educated they both were. And just feeling like, man, I am watching two intellectual titans just battle it out here. And extremely interesting podcast. And Julian Dory overall seems to be well educated on a number of topics that just make him a really great interviewer. And less about him and his interviewing skills, but someone who's really well prepared to have these kinds of conversations at a level that most of us, including myself, can't. Right? You want to talk about the dynamics of what's going on in the Middle East right now, you need to be extremely well educated to talk about it at the highest levels. And I'm just not, and most of it, I would say 99% of people aren't, right? So, including journalists and stuff like that, most of them aren't either. But when you watch people who are, that educated and able to speak at the highest level on these kinds of topics that are so nuanced and so complex and encompass decades, sometimes centuries, sometimes millennia worth of history. It's really impressive to watch, and I think Julian Dory is able to do that with a handful of different topics, which is incredibly impressive. To be versed in one topic like that is impressive. To see someone who's versed, who seems to have a body of knowledge where he's at least able to present himself as being educated on the topic, is really impressive. Now, granted, I'm a layman at best, so it may just be impressive to me, and anyone else who's well educated on the topic could point out why he's not so good. But to someone like me, it strikes me as incredibly impressive. So if you haven't checked out his podcast, definitely worth looking into. Super interesting guy. Now, that aside, this is the first time I've heard about body parts being discovered with the crashes. That's kind of interesting. I don't know how much legitimacy there is to that claim. Well, let's just say we don't know that the crashes actually happened. But this is the first time I'm hearing about it, so I don't know how compelling it is. I mean, again, you have folks like David Grush out there saying, we've recovered multiple crashes, so there is some legitimacy to it, more so today than there's ever been in the past. So I don't know that any of the stuff we're hearing from those more legitimate sources, like the David Grushes of the world, are including the claim that there was human body parts included. And I'm assuming he means like within the confines of the ship or something, not just that they've landed on top of a person, because that would be a little bit weird. So that's interesting. The cattle mutilation one, a connection isn't really there for me, because that could be a completely different reason, right? They're just studying whatever, I don't know. But claiming that they're harvesting humans for some purpose, farming humans for some purpose, is interesting. Again, don't know that I've heard that claim from any other source that I would take more realistically. So, but interesting to hear it, and something I'll keep my ear out for moving forward. That being said, the point he made about religious implications of this being a planet that we're just essentially farmed for resources. There are other theories that are sort of aligned with that kind of concept on a high level, specifically like the prison planet theory, and like the theory that like we're like souls. They're harvesting for a soul or something like that. I've heard theories that are sort of similar in that way, but this is the first time I'm hearing it about body parts. But the point I was going to make about the religious implications, it's a little bit odd to me. I don't know that it would have that big of an impact. From a religious perspective, like, people just thinking that they're going to die and not go anywhere is going to have some massive impact on people because they find out they're not going to heaven or something. I guess that's what he's trying to say. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a religious person. I don't have anything against religious people. Respect it, jealous of it to a certain extent. I think there's a lot of benefits there. I don't know that finding that out would be that as impactful as this person is saying. And a lot of this stuff, when you hear about, someone else talked about Bluebeam in an earlier clip, Project Bluebeam, is often tied up with some type of religious component as well. Jesus Christ or Muhammad or whatever, some religious prophet is going to show up in the sky and convince everyone to unite under one world rule. I don't know that religion has that level of impact anymore, to be blunt. I know that I'm speaking from a Western-centric viewpoint definitely the case. But again, if you talk about the West, you're talking about the Americas, you're talking about probably most of Europe and Australia. That encompasses most of the planet's population. Granted, you still have a large chunk of folks in Asia and India, but you're talking about all the Americas, you're talking about all of Europe essentially, including Eastern Europe, and you're talking about all of Australia. Mostly, and I know Latin America is definitely an exception here, but I think most of those cultures are fairly atheistic at this point. And now I think Latin America is a great example of a country that is still steeped in Christianity to a very large extent. That being said, I haven't spent a lot of time in many Latin American countries, even though I am part Hispanic. I don't know that religion is embedded in those countries to the extent that you could use it to manipulate all of the people, or that they would all lose their minds because they found out we're a prison planet for aliens harvesting our limbs or whatever, our organs. And we're not going to heaven, that's going to collapse society. I don't think so. I just don't know. I always, when religion enters the chat, I always start to like lose, not interest, but like lose, the argument starts to lose points in a serious way. And this is definitely one of those cases where these are interesting ideas. If the aliens are here, what for? And when you want to start positing theories like a prison planet theory or something like that, or you want to talk about Project Bluebeam and that type of thing, in either case, when you start leaning on religion as being some massive mechanism by which the one world government's going to manipulate the planet, or the reason why they haven't disclosed all this stuff is because people can't handle the fact that God isn't real. That's where you start to lose me, because I just don't think it's going to have that level of impact. Religion, frankly, while, like I said, perfectly fine, I have nothing against believing it. Most of the world, in my opinion, again, totally willing to be wrong here. I certainly haven't been many places in the world. Most places in the world. I've only lived in a couple, so totally speaking out of ignorance here, but it seems to be that the world has kind of moved on, and I don't think it would be that impactful as these folks who present these types of arguments tend to claim it would be. So I'll end it there, and hopefully some of those were entertaining today. You know, I'm talking a lot more and more between each podcast, TikTok, and I'm wondering if that's a bad thing. If anyone's out there watching at this point, comment down below. Should I just shut up and let the TikToks roll? What would be better and more entertaining and more interesting to watch? Maybe I just need to be quiet, but sometimes I find it hard. I think these subjects are so interesting and fun to talk about, so I get going and I can't help myself. Anyways, if you are out there watching, please like, subscribe, comment down below, share the video. Everything helps tremendously. Can't thank you enough for it. We will be back tomorrow with another one. See you then.